I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. I am Ben Dietrich. Jordan Rodelli is on vacation, but Andrew Kuo does not take days off, even the day after Election Day. Mr. Andrew Kuo, are you excited about democracy in America?
It's a new fucking day. Feel incredible. We have it. We have our futures to look forward to, Ben. It's incredible.
How late were you up yesterday? Because I did not stay up too late, and I was still up pretty late. And when I woke up in the morning, it looked like you had only recently logged off.
To our loyal Patreon listeners who are listening to this in real time.
Oh, sorry. I love those guys. Go on.
Amazing. Kings. Last night was election night. I was up until 6 a.m. waiting for Wisconsin numbers to come in. Pretty curious about Wisconsin, so I was just sticking around staring at my television.
You were on your Middleton shit. Mm-hmm. So they're waiting for those Midwestern mid-range numbers to come filtering through.
Who's the most famous Buck? That would be Ray Allen, right? Who's the most famous person from Milwaukee? Ray Allen, right?
Isn't it Giannis?
More than Ray Allen? Yeah, I mean, that's... not to discredit Jesus Shuttlesworth, but his career on the Bucks was very impressive. And Giannis is amazing.
Player.
2 MVPs. Shout out to Giannis. But Ray Allen was no joke.
If Giannis's last name was able to be pronounced by more people, this would not even be a question.
He's a pretty... Those sneakers do well, right? I got a pair of those
He's
sneakers.
a two-time
Cool.
NBA MVP. What did Ray Allen ever do on Milwaukee? Nothing.
He was in a Spike Lee joint, Ben. He
I
played
hated
Stephon
Ray
Marbury.
Allen. I hated Ray Allen.
Too pretty?
No, because he elbowed AI in the face during the
Oh, I like that. Chippy.
playoff series.
Yeah, I
he
remember
kept-
that.
Yeah, he kept like elbowing him and pushing him.
There was...
Hands off.
We
Get
always
your hands
talk
off the
about
goat.
this, but in video games, back in the day before video games got too smart, players like Ray Allen and Vince Carter were just unbeatable. Paul Pierce, too. Any small forward who could shoot and rebound, the programming couldn't accommodate for any of their weaknesses, being like, they're not really slow, they're not really turnover prone, so they're just dominant video game players.
Video games told us all we needed to know. Dunks and threes.
Well, it relates back to the election because it was revealed at 6 a.m., if you were awake, that Joe Biden is a hologram that Kanye West had commissioned the hologram people to make. Pretty incredible. Our first hologram president. Congratulations, you digital sire.
Joe Cool. So, at this point, if you were listening to this today, we're still in a bit of a haze. I mean this for Andrew and myself, but also the nation as one. It looks like Joe Biden is going to win on the votes for the Electoral College. It also looks as if we will be seeing legal challenges from Republicans and tweeted tirades from Donald Trump, who will be trying to stir up rage in potentially a dangerous way on the old internet. But that's where we stand right now. So if you are a Democrat, or a leftist, you are mildly pleased that it looks as if Biden will be our next president if things go as they are supposed to go. But it was not a overwhelming victory and not one without complication.
And, we're recording this the day after Election Day. He has a path, but it's not clear. But you're right. It looks like he will be able to do it.
Yeah, just where they are, the votes that are still uncounted, it would appear that Biden will probably win. That's where we are. And This is the same way when I look at the polls and said, looks to me like this is going to be an easy victory for Biden, because I'm just basing this on what other people are saying. This is the second election in a row where the polls have not seemed to accurately convey the actual opinions of the electorate and the way that the vote would go. A lot of people are dogging your boy, Nate Silver, the son of NBA Commissioner Adam Silver. Why are the polls off? What's happening here?
I think that I think chaos is built into everything, and there's an especially great amount of chaos built into politics now, just in the way that people don't necessarily describe the way they behave, and in this case, behavior is a vote. So I think there's more and more chaos built in, but that was maybe already there, but we just have more data points to report and more ways to report them. So I don't think there needs to be any solution to like fix polling. I think polling is chaos. But it's all we have, so we have to go with it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am with people's fury at the polling aggregates being inaccurate. Like, what do you want, man?
No, people try their best. It's like they said they were going to vote this way, so here are the polls, but they didn't do it. It's like it's chaos, man.
But I don't necessarily get if there's more chaos now than there was 4 years ago or 8 years ago. I would suspect due to everything. I don't know.
COVID, Trump, racism. Also, this is not a straight curve, right? This is a jagged line. This is an irregular heartbeat. Polling in general, not our political situation. I just think you cannot say it'll be a progression of the previous year.
There's speculation that people are afraid to tell a pollster that they'll vote for Trump, and then they go and do it.
There's Trump shame, allegedly. I'm sure that plays into it.
Maybe. I don't know. It could also be the people that you are able to get in contact with on a cell phone.
Are Democrats.
Might be Democrats. Or I don't even know. If a number shows up on my phone and I don't recognize it, there is a 90% chance I'm not picking it up.
Me too. I really like Nate Silver, and in my opinion, in 2016, he did it right. It's the misunderstanding of probability that we always talk about. And this year, I listened to him. I listen to him all the time. He was right too. Like if you listen to him talk, he's just like, these are what the polls say. These are three scenarios that may happen. We're just reporting here. We're reporters. We're not fortune tellers.
Well, he's
bookies.
also not a pollster.
He's not a pollster, and he tries to talk about the model over and over. It's like, these are how models are made, and these are how models are imperfect. He's awesome. I think he's a really influential guy still, and now he's kind of a punching bag in the same way Sam Hinkie's a punching bag. But I think Nate Silver changed the whole way we look at politics and the way politics behave. And all these things you're talking about, like maybe there's Trump shame, maybe there are more Democrats willing to pick up the phone and talk about their politics. This is all baked into models, and someone like 538, a company like 538,
that would be the question, though. Is like, well, if these things are in your models, how come your models are wrong?
So we have to wait, and I think someone said this well last night. This may be a blowout. It just wasn't quick. We won't know if it's a blowout for a little while because we're still counting votes, So it's like, it wasn't fast, that's for sure. Florida did not go the way Biden wanted it to. This could be an overwhelming blowout. We're not done yet.
Right. It's also the order that things occur affects the way we think about them.
Yep. Recency bias.
Well, almost that it sculpts a narrative, right? Where Florida going to Trump and Biden's votes being accumulated and counted later shifted it towards despondency on the Twitter feed. People were just losing their shit.
My friend circle on Twitter was losing their shit. With like selfies of sadness, and in the background I saw like a ton of alcohol, and I'm like, That's a tough combination. Election night and alcohol in your 30s and 40s is like a high risk situation.
I'm spiraling. Whoa, I'm spiraling. I'm over here with
Put
a
that
fifth of
Merlot
vodka,
down.
and I'm spiraling.
I know people were just like, I don't, and I love hyperbole. Let's not get this twisted. And people were like, this is the state of my children's future. And I'm like, all right. It's cool. I get it. But let's just wait and see what happens. And my annoying take last night from my immediate friends who I was texting was like, if Trump wins, our life doesn't change that much because we've had 4 years of Trump. If Biden wins, cool. I don't know. I just don't know. I learned the power of being kind of more miserable or less miserable.
Well, I didn't watch the coverage yesterday. I made an executive decision
You love to opt out.
for myself to opt out of any TV coverage whatsoever. I did not watch 1 minute of it. I periodically would check Twitter to get vibe check, to see how people were feeling. And I tried not to linger too long because I saw so much of I'm spiraling. And I'd be like, well, what's the information? You'd be like, well, okay, Florida, that sucks, yeah. And then you'd look a little more like, well, none of this stuff seems too unexpected. It seems to
all
be sort
fell
of where
into
we're
place.
going.
Yeah.
Like, why are people jumping off of balconies? Why are they throwing themselves at the walls? Like, what's the issue here? Was it performative hysteria, or was it just flashbacks to that feeling of unraveling from 4 years ago? I don't know. I'm not blaming people for how they responded. I just felt as if it was wise to avoid Twitter and avoid TV.
Yeah. I mean, we've all sat next to people at the Garden, and, the Knicks are down by, let's say the Knicks are only down by 7 points, a few possessions, and invariably there will be somebody close by within earshot who's like, Julius Randle, get out of here. What are we doing? Get him up. And I'm like, yeah. Are we mistaking this thing for something else? Are we not watching? Are we not staring at candles or Randalls? So I think last night, this is going to be weird. I thought John King on CNN crushed it. I thought I was skipping around and he was just like handling his business. So I stayed with CNN and he was on there basically breaking stuff down in real time. And he kept on saying the same sentence, which is like, this is why this is fun. We don't know what's going to happen, and it happens fast. If you have a horse in this race, this could be stressful. If you just love the democratic process, this is incredible, the way the electoral falls, right?
If you are the one person, myself, who finds this fun and there's no horse in the race.
Well, I found it fun, right? So I was like, this is incredible the way the electoral cascades, these information cascades down starting at 7. This is pretty phenomenal the way America has structured this election process.
When you say phenomenal, you don't
a
mean
phenomenon.
good.
I think it's interesting. I wouldn't design it this way, and I think it's been mutated to a point where we probably have to change it immediately. But he kept on saying, like, this is just, I know you guys want to fight about the electoral, but we're not doing that tonight. That's the discussion for tomorrow. Tonight, we have to figure out what happens with this process. And it was there was no kind of editorializing because it was happening so fast. And it was like, I just like watching numbers come in. Like, I like watching box scores of games I'm not watching with my eyeballs and just seeing like, well, someone's off the bench and they just poured in 15 points, I love that stuff. So it really works for me, my numbers kink, but I didn't find it too. I was nervous because it's stressful and it's important, but I thought it was a pretty incredible night. And throughout the whole night, Biden had the upper hand. So I believe he still has a slight upper hand.
Yeah, I was just trying to get big picture information to measure the temperature of the room. And no matter what happened, the room was flaming hot. I couldn't gauge where we were at off the tonality of people on Twitter because they were just losing it the entire time. And also, the way that Twitter structures things, you get messages from like the last like 8 hours, the last 11 hours, all filtered together. So you'll see someone being optimistic and you're like, nice. Oh shit, that was 7 hours ago. What about this one? Oh, they're angry now. What are they even talking about? And I found it, I don't know, I found it kind of terrible. So I just sort of walked around a little bit, got some work done, went out, drank a beer, walking down the street. I was like, ooh, it's quiet out.
I think I logged off of Twitter too. I logged back on to make some hologram jokes, but
Great stuff.
thank you. But yeah, Twitter's not the place to be because it's also catered to your behavior, or what your belief is. I thought watching it on TV was like the purest way because it was just like so fast. And they didn't even have time for pundits. It was just happening for like 5 straight hours, and then the pundits came out at like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. And I love the emoting that happens on social media for this, but this is like, did you see the movie Moneyball? That
I have.
like the part where, and this was in the book Moneyball, Billy Beane does whatever he can do to create wins for the Oakland Athletics, but famously doesn't watch the games. And they really played that up during the movie where it would be a big game and he's like, nope, I'm not watching. Not only because he's superstitious, but because there has to be a disconnect between the two worlds in order for him to make sense of it. And I thought that was a great thing. I'm not really like that. I watch the games, bro. I like the activity of watching my team lose by 20 points 82 times a year. It's pleasurable for me because life is short and this is it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the experience you're talking about, just from a Sixers perspective, was when they were running a drop coverage against the Celtics in this year's playoffs, which means when Boston would do a pick and roll, Embiid would drop back into the paint to avoid letting Kemba Walker slink around him for a layup.
Like a wet noodle.
But as a result, this allowed Kemba to get a look at, half a dozen open, fairly long mid-range jumpers. And there was really no one there. And Philly, by scheme, decided that they were going to sacrifice those shots. So Kemba went something like 5 of 6, or 4 of 6, 4 of 5. Shot well on them. These are not great looks. They're 2-pointers. They're not ones that he makes at an 80% clip, but he knocked down a bunch. And Philly fans lost their shit. What are you doing, Brett Brown? Why would you ever do that? It's like you can't. That to me is the problem with watching games and focusing on what you're seeing in front of you. And I felt like that was the same kind of response that you saw when people flipped out about Florida. It's like, sure, Florida would be nice to have, but that was we weren't planning on Florida for sure. That's Kemba Walker, if you're a Sixers fan, making some mid-range jumpers. Like, that's part of the game. You're not gonna win every single state. You're gonna lose some of these ones like Florida and Ohio because the Republicans win them all the time.
Yeah.
They're shitty states. What do you want?
I mean,
they're the mid-range jumpers of states.
Losing is built into life. It's baked into everything. An NBA season, an NBA game, an NBA possession. So is losing Florida or losing Ohio. What's up with Dade County culture, by the way?
I mean,
boys.
I am allowed to say that it's a shitty state because I'm a day one. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about specifically Dade County, Miami, what this means about their electorate and sort of the Cubans, the Venezuelans, and why they would embrace Trump. There are two unique groups in a unique city that is different from the rest of America. But that was a big topic that was discussed and is discussed right now. No matter what happens, we looked at these numbers and you say half the Americans who voted for a racist cretin who let 250,000 people die on his watch like one the worst president in the history of the United States, and they looked at him and said, 4 more years. And people, especially people of color, especially women, saying, "Are you shitting me? This is the nation we live in?" What's your response to that? Is this something that is this salvageable as a nation when you have this many people voting for this type of candidate? What does it say about us?
It says that Trump ran another really smart campaign. It doesn't really reflect on us on our soul. You know, I don't think that's quite the right discussion. To me, I'm more interested in his strategy, and
What was his strategy?
I think painting Biden as a socialist to Cubans was quick and smart. I think him downplaying the virus was smart. I think him hitting the states and locations that he hit was tactical, and we're seeing the advantages of it. He did a lot better than I thought he would. And I think it seems stupid in the moment, but things stick with voters. And voters are not necessarily all cerebral and world viewing. If you are someone who has come from a socialist country, escaped it, and all you do is accuse your other opponent of being a socialist, that might be enough for you. Being like, I don't want any of that smoke. And it seems like that could have been the turn for Cubans in Miami.
Maybe. But going back to what we were saying before, to say that, well, he used a good strategy, that explains why half the people in America voted for a white nationalist. Because
that's a good strategy, though, right? Because he is a business. Sorry to cut you off. He is a businessman who's worried about money from Midtown Manhattan, and he has somehow painted himself as a kind of ally for people who are scared of people who don't look like them. And I stand by this weird, vague idea that he's too dumb to be a truly racist, and I only say that because he looks like a duck and sounds like a duck. But I can imagine this scenario where, like, the KKK is just like, yes, Trump's our guy. Trump's like, yes, your guy. White people, awesome. I love you, white people. Nice hoods, nice burning stuff. I love it. And then he turns around and meets with someone of color, be like, yes, I love your food. I love your culture. I love immigrants. This is awesome. And the KKK people are like, what's going on? You just said we were the best. He was like, you're all the best.
I don't know. His dad was in the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah, but he's too dumb, is my point. Like, you're not like your father. I'm not like my father. You know, like, I think he's a very simple man. We should never underestimate that. He's worried about money and his debt.
I agree that he is a moron. That's not up for debate. Of course he's a moron.
He's simple.
But I also think he is without question a racist. And whether or not we're able to look deep in his soul or his brain to determine how genuine of a racist he is, that's the campaign that he's run. There's no real coherence to anything he's done except for white nationalism. I mean, that's it. That's all Trumpism is. It's populism based around racial animosity, you know? And whether or not he's just being opportunistic, that's what he represents, and that's what people vote for. So I do see people's concern when they say half of America is okay with an openly racist cretin, this guy who says awful things about people of other races, of other religions, calls Mexicans rapists. I mean, you're okay with this guy running the country? I get that. At the same time, I do think there are certain numbers that are just set in stone. And that's that something like 40% of the electorate's just going to vote for the Republican. It doesn't
the
really,
base.
it just doesn't matter. And
vice versa.
Sure, I think it goes both ways. And whether they voted for Mitt and we said, oh, they like Mormons, they like, statesmen like elders,
Yeah.
conservatives with dyed hair, or they voted for W and we said, oh, they like folksy Texans who are born again Christians, or they voted for John McCain and we said they like war heroes. Whatever the case, there's a certain segment that's just going to vote for a Republican because that's who they are and that's who they identify with. So are they comfortable with Donald Trump's racism? Seems that way. But they may not be driven by an orthodoxy of racism to this point. They just might be people who would vote for, as I think I've said on another show, a garbage can with a red R spray painted on it. That's our guy. That's the Republican candidate. A garbage can with an R on it. Cool. It's got my vote. Oh, it's a guy who died of COVID a month ago. I'm voting for him. Great. Cool. Because he's the Republican. And of course, I think it goes the other way as well. There are people who would never vote for the Republican, no matter how compromised or corrupt or awful the Democrat was, because, hey, look, you're a sports fan. Sometimes you take wins you don't really deserve.
A garbage can with a blue D on it.
I'll take it. I'll take it. It was a bad call. Favored them. I can acknowledge that. Yeah. I'll take it. Let's move on. So I do think that I think Trumpism is white nationalism, but I'm not sure that white nationalism necessarily is the most important factor to a huge part of his base, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think...
Yet they're also okay with it.
So I was watching some and polls are weird, about what people care about. And it turns out people who voted for him cared more about the economy, whatever they say. They're not going to say they care about racism. It's not something you would tell somebody. But, I think he's a bit of a despicable man, and his family is. But beyond that, I think looking at this as like maybe a game with some rules, the election and the way we participate in politics and picking our representatives, I look at it, and since this is a basketball pod, I'm gonna he's despicable. I did not vote for him, but I look at his strategy, and when I say he ran a pretty solid campaign, all he did was
I can't even fathom what his campaign was. But I hear you. Go on.
He shot valuable shots, and he did not mess around with keeping it honest. And he did not take a mid-range jumper just to space the defense. He did not shoot a corner three because he's not good at corner threes. He just dunked the ball over and over. And the opposing team said, "You can't do that. This is America. Where's the decency?" And he's like, "You watch me dunk again." And he missed some dunks. Some hit the back rim. He got fouled and missed some free throws a couple times. But that's all he did because he wasn't as skilled as a seasoned player. And he knew that from last time. And the rules had changed, and all he was doing was every shot was valuable.
I mean, I think he is an absolutely abysmal politician. He's a complete fucking dunce. Everything he does is stupid. It makes no sense whatsoever, except that he is beloved by a large section of the population, and he has media who will echo what he says in the form of Fox News and
who betrayed him last night. So that was the interesting thing about watching last night. His kind of very despicable is the right word speech last night was aimed at Fox News, like they were the enemy, and I thought that was really interesting because he doesn't discriminate. That's why I think he's a bad villain, because he doesn't discriminate between his allies and his enemies. So he came after Fox last night because they reported Arizona early, and that messed up his whole narrative of him declaring victory. By doing that, it took a move away from his hands, and he was furious. So he went on Twitter to talk shit about Fox, and he went on TV to talk shit about Fox. And I thought that was pretty interesting, where he's a non-discriminatory, honey badger. And
well, sure. If you don't kowtow to what he wants, he'll be angry at you. So, I mean, I think that's true. I don't think when Fox says something that he doesn't like, he goes after Fox, but that's because he's accustomed to them saying what he likes. And he would also go after, MSNBC if they said something he doesn't like. This is what he does.
So maybe where I'm pushing this is the reason I could stomach 10 hours of this coverage is I've kind of put aside the way you put aside the actual coverage. I've put aside Trump himself. He's despicable. I don't like him. I don't like his family. I don't like anything he does. But I put that aside because if I get into the things I don't like about him, he's racist, he's an opportunist, he's a scoundrel, I start looking at it through that lens. If I can put that aside and just look at, for one night, election night, look at it through how the hell he's going to get out of here and what avenues this will take. Points, valuable shots, all these things, the campaign, what they meant, what the campaign results show in votes. It is really interesting. If as soon as I get into like, but he's a jerk, like it just goes haywire.
On this topic of valuable shots, you don't have to keep it a fully basketball analog here. The DNC, I can't say if they took mid-range jumpers. I can't really say what they did. The DNC kind of like to dribble around a lot. I can't say they did a lot of dunks. I can't say they shot corner threes. How would we term the DNC strategy, the Biden strategy, the Harris strategy? What did they try to do here in this election? And can we blame them for these lackluster results in what was presumed to have been a far more decisive victory?
They were chilling on the overpass, the high road maybe. Their self-built high road through their infrastructure policy as the freaks were dancing below it with their black nail polish and mascara and fishnet clothing. I thought Biden ran a predictably Biden-esque campaign. I didn't see a problem with it. Of course, the results are kind of tenuous now, so of course it's easy to criticize, but it wasn't necessarily inspiring. But he made no errors in that he didn't die on TV, which was a relief to me. He made it to election day, but again, he's a hologram, so we'll never know. But I don't fault the DNC, and invariably there's going to be people who are ready with that draft in Twitter being like, Bernie would have won. And I'm like, maybe, but we'll never know. But he couldn't beat Biden, and there's a structure there. It's annoying. I was like, Yang would have won. It's like, no, he wouldn't have. I'm like, I don't know. We'll never know, right? Like,
well, it's hard not to view this as almost a play-for-play repetition of the DNC's approach with Hillary in 2016. Yeah, I mean, it lines up very squarely.
We only have as much data as we have.
Well, I'm talking about the approach to say
that's what I mean.
They have as much data as they want. I mean, they could do whatever they wanted, but
we've only had 2 campaigns in the last 8 years, right?
Well, I'm not talking necessarily about numbers. I'm saying they decided to go with a decrepit lifer from the DNC who is, a corporate Democrat, someone who is loyal to the party establishment. They did not take strong stands on many issues, and they chose the same exact strategy of defining themselves by the contours of Donald Trump.
Just to interject, I would say they took many strong stands on many issues like racism, BLM, the tax law, coronavirus. To me, it was direct.
I would thoroughly disagree that they took strong stands on any of those things.
Okay.
What's Joe Biden's corona plan?
He's pro Fauci, pro science, pro mask, and he is a person who directly referenced research, right? So he was saying, listen, we won't fix this overnight because there is no direct way to do this. I want a vaccine. You have to do these things, and we will shut down if we need to. And people were upset at that, and that may have cost him some votes. It ended up being people didn't care about corona. People cared about the economy, which is attached to corona. Also, racism is attached to corona. But he talked about all those things.
I don't find that strong at all, what you just said. And no offense to your way of saying it. You said it fine. I just did not find that a compelling stance on corona at all. That's not a platform.
But I mean, to take a larger worldview, I'm not even sure politics is for you, right? Because, I mean, I don't know how to say this. There is no, striking down with a sword in running a campaign. That is as strong as you get, right? So when Trump comes through and is just like, Joe's a loser, we're just like, oh, you're doing something different now, which is what the new rules of what you have to do. But like "You Sir Are No John F. Kennedy" was like a big deal. It's very beige when we re-say it. And this is just what politics is. The strength of a statement like "I stand for Black Lives Matter" is beige to us because we're just basketball fans. But as a politician,
But this is
That's what it is.
neoliberalism at its max. This is the height of neoliberalism, what you're talking about here, which is why it's such a perfect foil in some ways to alt-right white nationalism. These are two perfect soulmates in arguing out, an election. This is ideal.
but
Because
what if Biden wins?
Hold on.
Okay.
Because they are both ideological. Neither one of them promises you anything except for everlasting war against people who are wrong, people who are intent on damaging your way of life and the loved ones around you. Neither one of them gives you a thing. All they do is promise endless revanchism against your opponents, power, control, struggle, nothing else. They do not promise you anything tangible whatsoever. And that's why neoliberalism is incredible, because all it does is identity politics. It's vibes. And that's what white nationalism, it's vibes. Neither one of them offers anything on a way to actually solve shit. It's just about victory. It's about winning. It's about ways of life. That's it. They are completely bullshit. And when you look at what the Democrats offered, it was nothing. And this was the second campaign in a row. They offered nothing. They said, okay, you got this two-party system where one guy is evil.
Shout out to Kanye.
That whole party shifted all the way to the right. And we're going to go in and we're going to try to triangulate how we can. And we're going to go and sponge up votes and we're going to sponge up money and keep trying to get into their area. And then we can get some moderate Republicans and then we'll win this election. But to do that, we can't stand for anything because our party now consists of Green Party people, AOC, leftists, Bernie people, as well as people who literally voted for Trump last time. Our holy grail that Chuck Schumer loves of this fictitious family in Long Island who is a Republican family, but you can whittle over and you can earn him for the Democratic side. And that's why that doesn't stand for anything. And you look at the Republican Party, they take stands, build a wall. It's dumb as shit, but they take stands on things and they unify around them. Democrats never. What does Joe Biden stand for? Does he stand for universal health care? Nope. The Green New Deal? Nope. But does he stand for, college debt relief? Nope. Doesn't stand for anything. Nothing. And neither did Hillary. It's the exact same game plan. Just hedge towards the right. Know that the left will vote for you just because they have no other option. But it also is just a vacuum. I think Biden is still probably going to win here. But come on, offer people something. That's all I'm saying. It's not about anything except that. Trump offers you entertainment. He offers you the chance to win. You can wear a dumb hat. You can be part of Trump. He's going to crack jokes. Trump's America. You're going to get people in the East Coast pissed at you. But at least be alternatively, what about healthcare? Can you balance these things? Could I offer you healthcare in exchange for your Trump hat? Maybe that's something that you would like. I don't know. I just think you have to offer people something, and the Democrats offered decency. They offered stability, expertise, and all these things that no one cares about.
I would say I care about all those things. And also, I think Biden, Obama's, and that was not a perfect 8 years at all, but I think, the Affordable Care Act was a legislative move that is unprecedented, that no Republican has been able to duplicate. I also think, when I say, and I say this in when I said maybe politics is not for you, the royal we, whatever, it's politics sucks, man. This is not, it's not as cool as the NBA. It's not as cool as Hollywood or music or even whatever you're into. Politics will grind you down to the bone if you don't kind of laugh at yourself or it, because it's a bunch of bullshit, right? Like, so you make a good point. Like, I disagree with some of it, but you are also correct in that, what do they promise us? What is actually effectual? Is this just a perpetuation of this process? A part of it is that's true. It's fucking politics. It's like, why do I root for the Knicks if they never have a chance at winning? I'm like, that's a really good question. I don't have an answer for you.
I mean, look at Maine. $70 million spent to try to oust Collins. They lost. They ran on nothing. Just tried to run against Collins. Just give people something to vote for. Don't say, I'm not them. It's not good enough.
Well, we are also looking at the lens of, we're distinctly on one side, and we get frustrated when our people don't win. But I wish I was. I'm a political tourist. I try to do my homework, but Wisconsin, as we were talking, just got called for Biden. That's a big deal, and I think all these things have like an overall effect. Just because the way we share information, we know Collins is a target in Maine, and it didn't work out. But we talk about Collins quite a bit, and someone from Wisconsin, Chris Middleton, your boy, also knows about what's happening in Maine. And all this is kind of a thing that isn't in its own container. It's not a different floor of a department store. It's all one big space now where you can buy your groceries next to a car. That's where our brains have shifted in the last 4 elections, that we are not only walking and chewing gum, but spinning a yo-yo and listening to music and ranting off takes. Like, we are... The political system and the electoral process is adapting to the way we are changing.
That may be true, but I don't think it changes the fact that the Democrats tangibly offered nothing. They offered nothing. They offered things that were not tangible. As I said, decency, a return to normalcy. These ideas that sound comfortable. Oh, that would be nice. Decency, that's cool.
Those are
that's
not bad
tangible.
ideas.
But it's not tangible.
But this is what I mean, right? Like, politics is not tangible.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
A lot of it isn't. A lot of the great politicians a lot of the great leaders in our lifetime, the great Americans, are great because they represent an idea and a way to think. Martin Luther King, right? Like, he did tangible things, but he also did intangible things. And I think his influence, a lot of that, is based off of his ideas and the way he talks.
Changing the laws is tangible. Creating civil rights legislation, that's tangible.
We're all a part of the Affordable Care Act, and
which was
a tangible
terrible.
thing.
Which was terrible.
Okay, regardless of terrible or
deeply unpopular.
It is the law of the land, and it's tangible.
But Biden, I mean,
you disagree with it. I think the idea is great. Everyone gets health care. It being tied to your work is bad. And they said it's going to take generations to perfect this, but we have to start at some point. We cannot just
70% of Americans want universal health care, and that includes Democrats and Republicans in that pool.
Yes.
70%.
Yes.
Democratic Party decided that wouldn't be part of their platform. When they did that, it was very clear that, like, the jig was up. It was obvious that they were not actually trying to win an election. They were obvious.
Of course they're trying to win an election.
No,
Get
you're
out of
not.
here.
No, you're not. You are not. You are not trying to win an election if you say we are going to run away from a position that 70%
that's
of
different.
people
They're
want.
doing it poorly. That's different than wanting to win versus doing it poorly. They want to win the election, but they're just not doing it well.
I would say that they are not prioritizing winning the election. They're prioritizing the people who pay for their party. They're prioritizing their corporate sponsors from insurance companies, medical companies. They are not prioritizing winning over the existing power structure of the Democratic Party. I just don't think that's even possible to say, yeah, we're going to go with something that 70% of the people, we're going to go against the will of 70% of people on a clear winning issue because we want to win our own way. We want to win with our corporate benefactors intact, and let's have our cake and eat it too.
Yeah, I mean, this reminds me of our ongoing, amazing, kinky conversation about middlemen, and like the way we kind of agree and disagree on that. It's, I would love. I take that back. I don't want things to be like action or inaction or black or white or any sort of 1-to-1 ratio thing. I think politics is a great example of how, as soon as you do a simple act like humanizing an idea, it becomes very complicated, and there's some weaknesses and strengths to the way Democrats talk about healthcare. Maybe more weaknesses. I agree with you, but it's complicated. And to say like, someone do something for me. It's like yes. Holy fuck, it's complicated. And if you don't want to see the cliche of the sausage getting made, like, I know you want the sausage on your plate. It takes a long way to get there, and it's a process. It's processed food. And
the incrementalism that seems inherent in the DNC and intentional, that no change will ever come, but we'll get there at some point. We'll improve it that way. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to do business loans for minority owners in impoverished neighborhoods, so that they'll have to repay in 5 years, but with minimal interest. Like those are neoliberalism things. It's not actually change anything. Well, we're gonna make a little lip service. We're gonna throw you a little bone. And there were a couple amazing examples of that recently, where the mayor of Los Angeles, for example, said that to help people who were struggling with COVID, they were going to give you, I think, 20% off your parking tickets if you paid it within 2 days. Like, good looks. Thank you for that. That's
and that made news because it was stupid. But
this is the same kind of thing where Chuck Schumer said, just heard about a guy in Rochester, killed himself because he ran out of money, didn't have any benefits from COVID. They're like, we're going to do something about suicide prevention. Like that's what I'm talking about. The complete aversion to actually giving people stuff, to helping people. It is deeply frustrating when you view this as a popularity contest and you're rooting for a team that will not do anything to make themselves popular. That's the root of my frustration. It's not just that I think government should be better and take care of the citizens of America, and that there is a civic responsibility and like a moral code that people should have healthcare and housing and things like that. It's not just that I believe those things. It's that strategically offering people nothing is a bad idea. And we see it happen over and over and over and over. It's a unforced error. You can offer people stuff. You can offer them a better America that's not just platitudes. It's not just hope and decency. You can offer them real shit. That's what frustrates me. It's both things.
So I hear you, and for sure, it's like, show me the money, right? Some Jerry Maguire shit. And I think this is what the critics of the process would say, and we should get to that quickly. But like, I would say, there's many ways to like save your own damn life. And I think if you see an election like Biden versus Trump, and we're adults now, like stuff matters to us. Taxes immediately matters to us. I think a safe place to go is, I hate both of these dudes. They're both fucking terrible. Get them out of, I hate all of this. There's someone great out there, and he's not these two. I think that is like, I can empathize with that a lot, because this sucks. Because both these men have tremendous, tremendous weaknesses and very few strengths, to be honest, because I just want that beautifully cooked sausage on my plate. Veggie, please. And sometimes do what you do. No kink shaming. But like, I think what you're doing is, I think, very relatable and very human. And I think
I don't understand what you're saying here in terms of
being angry at both.
In terms of
is
what
an escape.
I'm not angry at both. I'm angry at both things.
That's what I mean, right?
I'm saying being angry at a country that does not take care of its citizens, and angry at an opposition party that doesn't even attempt to use those things as a way to win elections. That is frustrating to me.
It's hard. This thing's hard.
It's not hard. It's not hard. And you can
But
say that as many times as you want. It's not hard.
But you're having difficulty.
I'm not having difficulty with jack shit, man.
Okay.
Like, I'm not having difficulty with anything.
Okay.
Like, what I'm saying is, for the second election in a row, twice over the last 4 years, we have seen the Democrats come forward with a platform that offers nothing. They offer you nothing.
Well, we've said
and they've
that.
done this, and it failed both times. And that's what my frustration is. I'm not having trouble dealing with anything. I'm having difficulty with accepting a Democratic Party that thinks this is a viable winning strategy on a long-term basis, because they lost to Donald Trump once with it, and they almost lost to him and still could, despite there being a pandemic and an economic collapse. Not a great strategy.
That's fair. I mean, when I listen to critics of the process, it sounds a lot like that, right?
Yeah, right. No, yeah, sure, totally. Get out of here. What is wrong with you?
It's like,
Critics of the process.
Show me the results. Like, we got bounced.
No, that's not it at all.
Show me something that isn't this like cultural thing of moving the needle, ticking upwards and backwards and upwards. I want to see a tangible result.
No, man, you're viewing this all wrong. If you're looking at it like the process is do the right things to make the country better, and you will be rewarded.
I agree with
not
that.
Winning culture, because that's what Biden is promising. Winning culture. We are better than them. We are morally superior. Winning culture. We are more decent. People across the country, across the world, they will look at us with respect now that Trump is out of office, as if people walking around with red hats give a fuck what they say in Luxembourg. Like, that's what they're selling. They're selling you winning culture. They're selling you non-tangible stuff. I'm like, hey, offer me a second-round draft pick. Offer me a first-round draft pick. Offer me a young player with some upside. Give me some stuff that's not just ideas. Give me some stuff. That's what I'm saying.
That's fair. And like, I think someone who is like a tourist, the way I am with politics, would say like, what are these second-round picks? Does any of them end up on the team for a while? I'm like, sometimes not. It's like, well, what's the point? I'm like, oh, it's all about that. It's all about these second round picks, you know? And I'm lucky to have like one or two people in my life who are not political tourists, and I cannot fucking follow them, man. In the same way we talk about like Michich or like what the story of Robert Covington. And he's like, what are you talking about? And it's the same way he talks about the policies offered by these two candidates. And it's very stressful, and this fucking thing, it's complicated. We are lucky in a way that when we get to vote, it's binary. But tasked to do anything more than that on voting day is a challenge.
I mean, I think the problem here is the fact that it's binary. And if you have multiple choices, there are other problems that arise because of that. Tons of complications. Like, no system of government is ideal here in this way. But I think the binary is what gives birth to this, democratic institutional triangulism.
Hey, Kanye West tried.
Where you say, look how bad Trump is. I'm not him. You don't have to say, well, here's why I'm better, really. You just say, I'm not him. And, that's been the Democrats' entire way of defining their party, has been via as I said, the contours of Donald Trump. And they've done this now for 2 election cycles, and neither time has produced a particularly great result.
Although Trump did I'm not them and won off of that.
I mean, I don't know. He did I'm not Washington. He did I'm not Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, he did the swamp thing, right? The swamp worked. That whole strategy definitely was not a negative for him. It's like drain the swamp. Not. It's kind of, it did what it had to do for him. Not all of it, but we're dodging the issue. It's about Lil Pimp, isn't it? Like, come
Introducing Lil Pimp. Do you know how big this guy is? Lil Pimp?
It made me think of like little Marco Rubio. I'm just like, how does he process these words? I wonder. He doesn't, which is the answer. But like, shout out to Lil Pump, who like is shooting his shot, however short-sighted that shot is. Like, we're talking about Lil Pimp.
I mean, his career is done. That's a wrap.
I think so too, and
It may have been done anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's doing his best self thing, but yeah, his biggest moment was the collaboration with Kanye with those awesome costumes, right? And like, he's just kind of following the leader on this one.
I mean, the only good thing about it was him being called Lil Pimp, and
Yeah, yeah.
and Trump's expression of sort of curious bemusement at introducing Lil Pimp. That was probably the best thing of the election cycle.
That was definitely the highlight for me, and I can just imagine like Lil Pump getting a call from his publicist being like, "Buddy, Trump wants you on a plane to a rally. What do you think?" He's like, "I'm doing it." Imagine that going down. Like, it doesn't take much for Trump to bring you on stage, right? The bare minimum, probably. I'm surprised there wasn't more Scott Baio up in there, but does Lil Pump have that McDonald's meal energy of J Balvin and Travis Scott?
No, he does not.
What would be his meal?
Little Pimp's meal?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, just the Pimp special.
Yeah. Is that nuggets? Is that
It's all nuggets.
It's all
just
nuggets.
Nothing but nuggets.
It's just a bag of nuggets. No sauce. Dry style.
No, he has zero sauce. I'm just sorry. I'm just looking up that the New York Times needle. I don't see anything.
Oh, I forgot about the needle. The needle destroyed my mind 4 years ago. Is it as good this time?
No, I avoided it, and now I'm looking at it, and it's not seeming to help me. I don't know. The thing is, as you know, and you're listening to this things might evolve in a way that maybe it looks like Biden will lose within the next couple hours. We just don't know.
Yep.
So I'm trying to see if there's anything to shift our conversation, but I feel like we've already gone in like an hour. We're at each other's throats.
Hey, politics is this thing, right? You're right, though.
Let's talk hoops for a quick second here. I just got really annoyed when you tried to use the process and compared it to the DNC, because that was wild. You were wild for that one. I respect the balls it took.
I Lil Pimp that one.
I respect the balls, but
shot
that was
my shot.
You were wild for that, Dro. But the process is back in the news. Obviously, the hiring of Daryl Morey in Philadelphia, and he had a press conference, and we'll have a few brief words about that in a sec. But our guy, Cookie's guest, friend of the pod, Pablo Torre, had a hour-and-a-half interview with Sam Hinkie, the architect of the process, the deposed Philadelphia 76ers general manager. Came out about a week ago. We didn't have a chance to talk about it because it came out the same day our last pod was. That wasn't even a week ago. I was like,
the streets are saying it was a perfect one.
It was perfect. I guess that was like Friday. I don't know. Time all goes. It was like 3 days ago. Who can even say?
No one knows.
But we both listened to it. What did you think of Sam Hinkie's reemergence after really several years of silence?
I was excited for it, man. It was a really cool listen. Shout out to Pablo, who did a great job, and it didn't tell us anything new. These were a lot of cookieisms, if that's a word, like value, shot value, superstars. Be very careful what you do with something you worked very hard to create, which is Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, and all these things that were just kind of confirmation gruel for me and the interns. But it was really cool to hear about his life point of view, his worldview, which coincidentally I could relate to a lot, so I enjoyed listening to it. What do you think?
Are you a Bayesian?
I think there's merit in everything. I heard this new term, like something had a prefix of pan, but I believe in everything. Everything makes sense to me. So yeah, I'm
pansexual is what you're looking for.
No kink shaming.
I found Sam. There were some things he said that I really liked. I thought his point about the rarity of guys like Joe and Ben was, I agree. I like his point about Daryl Morey being great for this job, as we know, and that idea that he will do the job, that he'll do the work that's required. And Sam was very clear about that. And that had been my critique personally of the Sixers front office since he had left, that they didn't do the little things. You know, you might be able to make a good trade for Jimmy Butler, giving up Covington and giving up Dario, that gives you back a star player. But if you had made smarter moves along the way, you wouldn't have had to give up Covington anyway. You would have still had Jeremy Grant on the roster. You might have had other players, and you wouldn't have sold second rounders, etc. And that's what gives me faith about Daryl Morey's ability to fix the Sixers, is that he'll do those little things and they'll add up in a cumulative way that produce good results. And we saw the opposite happen in Philadelphia over the last 4 years, which was a constant erosion of their opportunities due to ill-informed, small decisions and missed opportunities. So I thought that emphasis from Hinkie was great. I also find he's kind of annoying. And I can get why some people who are in the front office would be sick of him. A guy who's there saying, well, it was a 45% chance and I'm a Bayesian. You're like, all right, dude, I get it, but can you just tell me what's happening? And I can see how he's not for everybody. Was he good at his job? Hell yes. I think he was. I think he was fantastic. Found 2 Hall of Fame players in 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other good, draft picks, guys who are, excellent contributors around the league. He was awesome at his job. I'm just saying I could see how him in a front office could be grating to members of ownership, to people like Scott O'Neil, to people who were sort of jocks. I could see it. It's possible. That doesn't mean he should have been forced out, but there is a quality of sort of light smugness to him that sort of camouflaged as self-deprecation. I can see that. But of course I fuck with him.
Yeah, for sure.
He's great at this, and I liked hearing him, and I liked hearing about his relationship with Joel. But that's the longest I think I had heard him speak, especially with some degree of frankness. And I'm like, I can see it. I'm not annoyed, but I can see people getting annoyed. And when he would start talking about his infatuation with venture capitalism, I would be like, all right.
I always think in the movies, it's there's the main character, the good-looking character, is always like, oh, I just want to be with a nerd. And I'm like, no, you don't. Nerds are not pleasurable. No, nerds are cool by definition, right? They have a touch of a spectrum kind of OCD thing. There's no way Sam Hinkie is chill, right? And he may work for someone like Joel Embiid, who seems to love him quite a bit. And he probably doesn't work for anyone else there. But him being likable and funny was probably off the table. And him being this nerdy kind of obsessive, maybe exists more outside the NBA world or basketball world than he is inside of it, is also annoying because it's condescending. And this is election relevant.
But maybe behind closed doors with friends, he's like Hunter Biden.
Oh, we all hope we're all Hunter Biden. Yeah.
He's getting it popping with, weed slut 420.
Let's all dig deep and get our Hunter Biden winning gene. Discover that trait in all of us. But I liked him quite a bit. Of course, defund WISP, cancel WISP, but I found it to be awesome when he said the end game was games are expensive and a family can go to a final Sixers game and have that memory forever. And he was like, I was trying desperately to manufacture this environment for our fans. And I felt that was so awesome because some people might think that. I think most people in charge think that. But he said it in such a way where I was like, oh, he actually cared about it. And he talked about the Sixers in a way. It's like, oh, I still follow them. Those are my dudes. I care a lot about those colors. Those Sixers colors don't run, Ben.
That's what I felt, right? So I loved all that stuff.
Yeah.
I liked knowing that he was still in contact with Joe, kind of talking him through stuff. And on that topic, one thing I noticed that was different about what he said and what Daryl Morey said during his introductory press conference as the new president of basketball operations, or whatever his title is for the Sixers, was that Sam Hinkie undersold the team's chances this year. Said there was a lot of work to do. Let's be very patient.
Yeah, I disagreed too. Yeah.
I mean, he was doing that as a solid to his guy.
Absolutely right. He was protecting his dude.
Right, and Morey took a very different approach because he's there next to the owner, who has just invested a lot of money in both him and Doc Rivers for the foreseeable future, half a decade. So he had to be a little more bullish. He couldn't say, well, there's a lot of work to be done. We're not really looking to win right now. He has to say, these guys can win a championship. This duo, these guys can win. So I thought there was a real difference in optimism depending on who you spoke with that made total sense considering the context of how they were both speaking about things. But did you take anything away from what you saw of Morey's press conference?
No, I think Morey is a fantastic media person, and he's kind of, scuttled around. I think, from the, Pablo asked Hinkie directly what he thinks his buddy Morey is going to do with Joel and Ben. And Hinkie gave Morey the platform to do whatever, because he was like, I wouldn't do anything, but also if the right thing came along. He kind of hedged it because Morey doesn't sit still. He's a busybody. And this press conference was, what can you say when you're sitting next to your boss, for real, though?
Yeah, I know people tried to sort of glean responses to it based on things that he said. People, he's praising Joe, but not Ben, which means that Ben's
I love it,
traded.
man. Yeah.
I'm like, sure, go off. If that's how you want to interpret this.
Yeah.
I don't think he's the kind of guy that you should be reading too much into what he says.
Yeah, I agree.
He's not going to tip his hand in a dramatic way where you're going to know exactly what he's got planned. I did not take really anything away from it other than I will take him at face value, saying that he believes these two guys can win together, and he seemed to believe they can do it in short order. I will optimistically believe him on that. But yeah, I did not see any sort of, umbrella, overarching takes to take away from that press conference.
Yeah, and back to your point, it's like when Hinkie was trying to do his dude a solid by saying, like, it might take some time. I disagree. I think he can do one or two things and they can be in the finals next year. It's ready, and to Hinkie's credit, it's ready. He created a situation that Morey saw. It got out that Morey didn't approach Josh Harris. Josh Harris was immediately in Morey's world as soon as he stepped down from the Houston job. And Morey saw the roster and was like, this is awesome. So let's go.
Yeah, the Morey, Hinkie, Embiid trio is quite cute. Mm-hmm. And after learning about how Hinkie and Embiid chat, seeing Morey post a FaceTime shot of him talking with Embiid from Embiid's house with his, like...
What a house.
I don't even know what was going on. Weird tiles and...
70s sci-fi action going, like green lights. What?
The whole thing is controllable via Samsung.
It's like a child's image of a disco.
Yeah, but that image was really cute though, because Joe seemed so
Sweet.
genuinely happy to see him, and just that whole connection was really nice. I only really viewed his praise of Embiid through the lens of, Embiid really is a guy who wears his heart on his sleeve, and he was the guy who was unhappy with the direction of the franchise the most, at least in a way that we knew. He was upset when they got rid of Hinkie. He was a guy who was targeted a lot by the burner accounts for being lazy, for not caring about the sport.
Crazy talk.
He was, sure, of course. And he was also someone who really liked Jimmy Butler. And they decided not to re-sign him. So he was the one who I think you had to say, hey, look, I'm Daryl Morey. I'm repairing your relationship with the franchise center, with the guy who the fans love, who represents happiness in Philadelphia basketball. I am repairing that relationship. So that if I'm going to do a little reaching and I'm going to try to grasp at straws for a takeaway, it would be that I think Daryl Morey was demonstrating via that conversation, via that screenshot, that I can make Joel Embiid happy to be a 76er. I can make him the spirited player, the ebullient young, superstar that you want in this organization, and not someone who's unhappy to be here, taking pot shots at you on Twitter, and that there's constant speculation about him wanting to go to Miami or some shit.
This never happens in life, man. When you get a second chance at something, like Hinkie, I thought was great, Apex. And then we had a rudderless vision with your carb-on-carb pizza in taco in a pie crust boy.
Stromboli King.
And shout out to Cheesesteak Country, man. We're all eyes on you. But I think this is so awesome. No one gets a second chance like this. It's like, okay, we've lost our way. We're going to bring in somebody with a sharper focus, your ex, but more aligned with your worldview that dumped you, or that you dumped regrettably 4 years ago. This never happens, man. The Sixers got Daryl Morey. What the hell? In Joe and Ben's prime.
I mean, it's still hard to believe.
Yeah, it's abstract, right? Is this a dream?
As I said last episode, I'm just looking forward to the draft in a way that I was not before.
Yes.
Daryl Morey with 5 draft picks. I think we should just having someone active who hopefully won't be selling them off. That would be a refreshing change of pace. Seeing that orchard that Hinkie had planted get some new seeds sown in the fertile loam, if you will. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want someone in charge who no matter what they do, you're like, they have our best interests in mind, not our worst, or not their own best interests. So if he does sell 2 second-round picks, you're like, well, the long game is Morey has our back, so that was stupid, but what's his plan? I don't think he's going to do that ever, but what do you make of the Shams bomb?
Are you talking about the James Harden one?
Yes.
So your man Shams, he
I like him.
said that the Sixers would be interested in trading for James Harden and the Rockets would not be interested in trading him. Sure.
No shit.
All this stuff sounds reasonable to me.
I think there's 28 NBA teams, the only other 28 teams that aren't the Rockets, that would love to have James Harden on their team.
I don't even find the Sixers a particularly interesting target if I'm the Rockets.
I agree as well.
Like, sure, maybe you can try to get Ben Simmons. He's really good. You're not going to get Joel Embiid, I don't think, because Embiid's, I don't know if you even...
Is he untradeable? He's basically untradeable.
I mean, he makes so much money. He's got an opt-out after 2 years. Simmons has 5 years left on his contract starting this year. That's a lot to give up for a player who is better, is an offensive genius, but who is, 31 years old with 2 years left on his contract. I don't know. It's tough. I think if you want to win a title, you might have to do it. But I don't know. Do you want what Philly has besides him? They don't have good draft picks for you. They don't have too many other good young players. I don't know. I think the idea that every team in the league wouldn't be interested in Harden, if possible. I mean, everyone wants James Harden if he's available, right?
He's a beast. Okay, so this is my hot take brain talking now. Get into the zone. Hologram active. Is Ben Simmons better than James Harden?
I mean, he's not as good offensively.
No.
James Harden is the GOAT.
But Ben Simmons might be the best defensive player in the league.
And he's a good offensive player.
Yeah. Is he better than James Harden? It's crazy to say those words, but Ben Simmons is probably going to finish top 3 in Defensive Player of the Year voting next year again, and be a devastatingly good offensive player. Like, if that was on the table, if that trade was on the table, do I do that?
It's tough because I don't want to see Joe and Ben split up because I would like to see them, for my own personal satisfaction, succeed together in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I agree.
To, put a thumb in the eye of all those people who
They're such a nice
screamed that
duo.
they should be broken up forever.
Yeah,
Tough to say.
yeah.
Because, again, I really like his game, but you're also talking about pairing with Embiid in that situation, a top 3 defensive player at the most important position for that, with maybe the top 1 offensive player in the league at the position where that's most important. Like those
Splitting
two,
hairs, yeah.
those two elements, like a scorer creator at the 1 and a defensive anchor at the 5, that's a very easy combination to build a great team on both sides of the ball around.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, in a vacuum, I would probably add Harden and swap out Ben. But man, I was thinking about it and I was looking at those numbers. Harden is like an offensive genius, and it's hard to say that he is the player that Morey envisions, or maybe Morey just got the best out of a certain type of player with a skill set. I am dying to see what Morey does with Simmons, so I just want to see 5 years of this trio.
Same. That's where my heart is. It's tough. Like I can sit here and mentally say, well, if you could put Harden next to Embiid even for a couple of years, you have a very good chance of winning a championship. But I also look at it like, hey man, Hinkie was talking about Ben Simmons and said, you're one of your best players, if not your best player, and like my ears kind of perked up.
Yeah.
If we're gonna be overanalyzing what these guys said, I was like,
Yeah.
his description of Embiid was quite accurate. He said what we foresaw was a dominating defensive player who could also be quite good on offense. And I've been thinking about centers a lot and what we view as the best centers in the game. And I think it is so sculpted by what they do defensively. When we think of the Titans of the pivot, we don't think of Rudy Gobert,
Are you
right?
talking historically or actively?
Yeah, I'm taking historically, like the greats of all time.
Okay,
We
so
think
Mitchell
much-
Robinson.
of course, Nerlens Noel. But when we think about Akeem and Robinson
Ewing.
it's a mix of imagining them blocking shots and rebounding and patrolling the paint, getting the ball in the post and shooting jumpers. It's not generally just their offense.
True.
Because if a non-center did what centers do, we wouldn't be that impressed for the most part. Like you look at Embiid's numbers, even when he scored like 24 a game, he was efficient. Low assists. You look at it and you're like, well, that's like Tatum-y. That's, you're like, okay, you're a volume scorer who's pretty efficient, but you don't pass the ball, you don't create for other people. But big men, we give a pass on offense. I don't know. I was thinking about that when we view like how good Jokic is. His passing is a dimension that no other great center supplies. It makes him such a different offensive weapon. But we give big guys a pass when it comes to being good creators. We just say it doesn't matter because we're imagining them as rebounders and we're imagining them as shot blockers and this other presence on the other side of the ball. I just think they bleed together in our perception of how good a center is.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Jokic is a point guard who can rebound exceptionally.
But that's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
But when we think of like the all-time great centers, people don't really think of Jokic being among them because he's not that kind of imposing,
Right.
towering presence that like looms over the whole side of the court. And you
Right.
imagine like the photo being taken of him like snatching a rebound with 2 hands and like holding it above his head.
Yeah, I agree, and it's the same way maybe people will talk about Harden's legacy. It's like, who are the best point guards in history? It's like James Harden's like, well, he's not really a point guard. I'm like, he's a point guard. It's just by all definitions, he's a point guard, except for the categorization of it. He's a wing, and the center is where the action is with like this preconceived notion of what it should be, and we'll save the KBB, but it plays out in the way people value. Like, who's going to spend a pick on James Wiseman? That's going to be interesting. Like the Suns spent a pick on DeAndre Ayton, in my opinion, because of memory. because of what they thought they should do based off of what they've seen in NBA history's past, right? Which started in 1996 with Allen Iverson.
What a year.
Huge.
Yeah, I think guys like Hakeem and Robinson were awesome offensive players. I just think a lot of times we still view them like differently because they're so important to a team's defense, and that leads to the team's success, perhaps more than their offense even does.
And that's valuable too. But when you can get somebody who does something differently, you don't worry about defining them, and that's where a strength of someone like Morey exists. You don't say, okay, I have my center position locked. You look at it, to your point, as like a nebulous kind of offensive blob and be like, what do these players do? Does it bleed into there? Does it bleed into there? If you can formulate a perfect circle of everything bleeding into the other, you have like probably a finals team, right?
Yeah, and just to jump back 1 second, I went and looked up like 1993, well before the NBA started.
Yeah,
Allen
so
Iverson
yeah.
was still
A
in
glimmer
bowling
in the
alleys
NBA's eye.
in Virginia.
Yeah.
Looking at like offensive BPM, which we know is a Boston-based stat, but you look at the guys in 1993 who were the best offensive players in the league, and it's like MJ, Dominique, Barkley, Malone, Mark Price, Stockton, Tim Hardaway, Reggie Miller. Then you get to Brad Daugherty and Olajuwon. Then you have Drexler, Mullen, Robinson, Ceballos, Larry Johnson, Schrempf, Dumars, Coleman, Kenny Smith, Ricky Pierce. There are only 3 centers in the top 33 players in the NBA, at least according to Offensive Box Plus Minus. So my point there is that we viewed that as the era of centers, but it was really that they were just so incredibly important on defense that it elevated them as like iconic players.
And I like that. I'm not against it, and I think what hurts that Boston baked metric is like the lack of assists, and so a lot of, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of those centers in that era had a few turnovers more than they do now because of pounding the rock and like posting up. They were just they had the ball in their hands too long.
More people in the paint.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. But I'm with you. Like, I feel like the minute we start divorcing ourselves from this idea of the 90s center is the minute we kind of evolve the game into a more watchable thing, to be honest, because those games were not fun.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just thinking of greatness when it comes to, say, like a center or any position. It depends on what you do on both sides of the ball. And that kind of goes to the Ben Simmons thing with Harden, because you're talking about Harden, who's an okay defender when he's active, and
yeah, he's not bad.
He's maligned more than he should be.
Yeah, huge block. Yeah.
But how much do we value being a fantastic defender?
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean to a team? What does that enable you to do? And I mean, this is the calculus that you have to do with all types of players who aren't elite on both sides of the ball, because most of them aren't. It's the whole conversation about 3-and-D players. There aren't that many guys who are real 3-and-D that are lights out shooters but can also defend. And we've talked about this. Klay Thompson. He may not be a star, but he is really unique. That there's kind of only him out of guys who are just knockdown shooters, who you can't leave at all, who are also positive defenders, and that you can put him on a ball handler and he'll do a good job and you don't have to hide them. And like, it's just rare. Getting a really good two-way player is extremely unique.
And we talked about this when Morey acquired Covington and unloaded Capella, to your point about centers. And the reaction was, oh, Morey's taking this point of view. And I'm like, no, Covington was available. You only do this for Covington, right? He makes the thing go, not a player like Robert Covington. There's one. So Morey saw the opportunity to do that in the way he built the team around
Well, there was
Harden.
one Covington and one PJ Tucker, and you got them both.
Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, they do different things, but similar, right? Yeah, and you also add a little spicy Donwell House into the mix, and
A little Donwell, perhaps one of your man's, Jeff Green.
Hey, man. Jeff Green's been in the league for a long time. Players love him. Apparently, like, he destroys practices, but is one of those guys that, like, never quite fit the bill of what he looks like. Sort of like Joe Smith or Tim Thomas.
One thing about, yeah, that feels like the same. Tim Thomas particularly seems like a similar player.
Knicks
Both
legend.
shot threes, both were really athletic. Never had quite a great fit, except Tim Thomas played like some 4 and small ball 5 when he was in Phoenix, which is a bit how Jeff Green was utilized by the Rockets. But every now and then, Jeff Green will just lay down some crazy hammer dunk.
It's weird.
And you'll be like,
yeah.
who the fuck just... Oh, Jeff
Yeah.
Green, that's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
he does that once a year. Yeah.
Once a year, like clockwork. Like, ooh, it's that time of
Nasty.
year, Jeff Green just yokes on somebody.
Nasty. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to see what players out there that Morey can identify that we're not thinking of. And I didn't know of Dunwell before he joined the Rockets. Like, I was not scouring the G League or undrafted players for guys like him.
No, I know, and my advice on who the Sixers should sign becomes now increasingly worthless. Because before you could sit here and say, well, here's a step-by-step instruction booklet, you idiots.
Yes,
First,
right.
we get James Ennis back for the 3rd time. Now you're like, well, I don't know, man. He's probably got some
Yeah,
guy playing ball in Russia that he's got his eye on. He's going to bring him over. Maybe he'll bring over your boy Micic.
I want to
Micic.
see. I want to see this dude, man. What's the word on him? Are there rumors?
He signed a new contract, but I mean, yeah,
He has an out, I'm sure, right?
I would presume. I mean, the Meat Shield didn't really want the Meat Six, so
The meat shield didn't want to be a meat stick.
the Meat Sick movement.
Yeah,
But I would like to see him. He will find those guys that I don't even have thoughts about. So it's I kind of just opted out. I've stopped
Yeah.
coming up with. I see people posting, here are some guys the Sixers might pursue. I'm like, yeah,
Exactly.
sure, whatever.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
It's you guys have leveled up into right. So yeah, what got me excited is you texted me the other day, being like, "Now I'm excited for the draft and all the movement that's going to happen because there's a damn adult in the room in the Sixers." And I think in 2 weeks, hopefully, we will have a new president that's a hologram, an ethical hologram at best. And maybe we're gonna have tons of movement. And basketball is a more fluid league than No Sin Bin, the NFL or MLB. What do you? I mean, the players like Devin Booker come to mind. That vacationing hero, that vacationing prince, Devin Booker. Like there are maybe 6 or 7 teams that are primed to make a move, whether to get better or worse. I don't know. What's your vibe?
I think it will be difficult to know what teams are panicking for financial reasons. Maybe they're all good. Maybe they have enough money. Maybe that's not an issue. But it will be interesting to see if some teams start doing things that are clearly based on economic bottom lines. Sixers, Josh Harris shorted shopping malls with Apollo Capital. They made like $130 million off of failing shopping malls during COVID. They had some money to use, but they are the anomaly to a degree in that they went and bought the best talent in the market. They went and paid for it. They ponied up and brought in Doc Rivers and Daryl Morey. They said, hey, for all of our differences, you want to win, we want to make money, here's a bunch of it. That sorted out their differences. So to Philly's credit, they went out during a pandemic and spent money. There are teams that may have the opposite reaction, that may say, we cannot go over the cap. We have to dump players. We have to dump salary, and we'll do anything to get rid of it. We just don't want these players anymore. So I think we might see pretty good players change teams for almost nothing, depending on the motivations of ownership.
I agree, and my favorite team under the overpass, the high road, can accept some of these these junk bonds, and hopefully they'll come with a little Zaire or a little draft pick here and there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that too, because in that kind of market, I think smart GMs can identify value, and if a team is willing to give up on a player, sometimes that player has a value. Depending on COVID has been tough, man, and a lot of these owners didn't make money, and the cap is going to be smaller. By how much, I'm not sure, but it's going to be interesting. A lot of it, unfortunately, will be financially informed, like you said.
Well, I mean, all these guys have incredible wealth. They're fine, but they might also just not like losing money.
There's never enough money for these
not to.
dudes. Yeah,
they could swallow these losses without blinking, but they don't feel like it.
yeah, and neither should they. Like, Lakers, you've won enough. Stop signing AD. It's like, no, we'd like to win another one. It's like, aren't you satisfied? Like, no.
I mean, without rehashing the conversation about, vanity projects, I believe that they, in fact, should be willing to swallow those losses, because that's the game. And you want to own a team and not swallow losses, then sell it to someone who will. Just from the perspective of fans.
Yeah.
Because I don't think owners should be owning teams if they are unwilling to accept occasionally losing money on them,
I was thinking
or
about
making
that.
less money than they already are.
I was thinking about that. I'm like, what isn't a vanity project? Like, my Twitter account's a vanity project. My clothes are about vanity. I think these owners definitely view their teams as vanity, but their money more. Like the story of Ballmer dumping a suitcase full of millions of dollars in front of James Dolan and calling him poor is hilarious, right? Because it's just like the behavior we all do. It just scaled up to an unbelievable degree. And James Dolan being like, compared to you, I am poor. Like, I run an entertainment business that skirts property tax. You did Microsoft, And he's like, I'm so ashamed. I'm like, James Dolan has more money than I can ever imagine. But I was trying to think of what wasn't a vanity project. Like the I voted stickers about vanity, I had trouble thinking about that. Also trouble thinking about things I liked that were not funny. Can you think of it like a movie, a musician, or some sort of a book that you thought was amazing that had no sense of humor?
Nas Illmatic.
Yep, that's the first one that always comes up. There's not a drop of joy in there, but it's amazing. It's incredible.
He does have some punchlines, which I guess you could say are in the realm of humor, because they are wordplay and cleverness.
Yeah.
Like, there are some of them. He was not a big punchline guy, but there's a few, like Malcolm X catching the jungle fever. Like, that's a joke, If a comedian said it, it would not sound weird. It sounds like a joke. But there's not a lot of it. That's not what he does.
Yeah, I mean,
he's not Luda.
No, he's no Fabulous. But I was thinking of like Christopher Nolan movies, like the Batmans and Tenet and Inception. Not funny. Awesome. I love them all. But it's rare, right? Because
But The Dark Knight Returns, right? That's the one.
He did all three.
That one is kind of funny.
In what way? Yeah, I'm into this, but
with the Joker, like the Joker is like hamming it up. Like there's a funniness to him, to that specific character, not really to Batman or to the other characters, but the Joker himself, at least. I think that's in part why he's so compelling. That he does lend a comedic darkness to those films that's missing otherwise.
I can get with that. That was an amazing performance, but it reminds me of someone who was really into Diesel, like that kind of funny, where I'm like, ooh, right. And it's funny how Diesel has been replaced by bonobos and Allbirds, but what a weird last 10 years, which is a blur. I can't even tell you, but I value funny over everything in stuff that I like. But it was just a weird thing to think about. And everyone I asked this question to said Illmatic.
When I think about the series that I'm able to watch for multiple seasons to binge, they almost always have to have humor.
Yeah, man.
Like every time. I looked at a show, I couldn't watch Lost because
True.
to me this is a show about people on a desert island. This should be funny.
Yeah.
If nothing else, like gallows humor, cannibal jokes, it should be funny.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. And just in that same era, I remember trying to watch that show Heroes, and it was about people acquiring, superhero abilities. I'm like, this isn't funny.
Yeah.
People are learning to fly, and you couldn't make it funny.
Yeah.
So I bailed on both of those very early on. But yeah, my favorite shows are ones like Sopranos and ones like
The Wire's
The
funny.
Wire.
Yeah.
Out of the cliched pantheon of shows that we all view as amazing. They're funny. I mean, like NYPD Blue, it's funny. Dennis Franz is funny.
Law and Order, hilarious. And yeah, I think I was thinking about this because of the Nexium. There's like 3 Nexium docs you can watch. One of them is still going, I believe, on Showtime, the HBO one, and it's just like not funny at all. So inevitably they're gonna have a Nexium movie, a scripted movie, right? I'm like, can Michael Cera be the guy? Can this be like kind of weird and funny and awkward? Like, do we have to take this seriously? But if someone like Fincher gets his hands on it, it's going to be amazing.
As amazing as The Perfect Pod?
Never. Nothing is as amazing as The Perfect Pod.
I didn't think so. Even though we went at it.
We got to do it, man.
Tempers were high, flaring on the day after the election.
Woo!
May the best man win.
Yes. Cookies.
Cookies.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.